we have a good majority, I think, with us right now. We probably have a few others that might come on, but let's get started since we're at the 2 o'clock hour. Welcome everybody to our Quillo Nation call today. We're already in the month of April. Can we all believe that? I know time's just flying. As we typically do, we will be recording the session. And if you have questions or would like to make comments, please feel free to unmute and speak up, or use the chat feature. That's absolutely fine too. So we encourage and want this to be a space where everybody has opportunities to share what experiences you're living through, as well as the Quillo group will also do so. So joining us from the Quillo team today, we've got, of course, John Dickerson, our CEO, founder, Kisa, and we'll talk about her in just a few moments, and then Rebecca, who'll be running our slides today, and then myself, Sue. So welcome everybody. For our agenda today, as we had shared, we'll be always kicking off with a little good news. So we've got a couple things to highlight there. And then we're just going to open up a discussion around growth. As a team, we've been talking a little bit about this and would love to hear what you're doing personally as well in your own organizations to continue that ongoing growth, especially knowing that we came off of a very challenging year. So we'll have a little discussion around that. We'll of course highlight a few videos then with some self-care, and then talk about a little bit more with our wrap up and the next call, what to expect. So again, for all of those who are across the nation, you'll see a map here that just shows where we have folks located throughout the country. So welcome for whatever state you're at today. So we're glad you're with us. So with that, let's kick off with our good news bench. And as you know, what we like to do is always think about, hey, what are the good things that are taking place? And however you do it in your organizations, we hope that you're somehow trying to connect with people and find out what's going well. We use the bench as kind of our symbol. Hopefully people are sitting down and talking about some of the good things that are going on. So we want to recognize a couple things. One is, first, congratulations to our friends at the Village of Marici. That would be Colleen Rennie and Christy Hayes, who are with us today. They received some federal funding through the Community Connections for People with Disabilities grant program. Awarded $200,000 there, so you can see their faces are definitely smiling. In partnership with ourselves, Quillo, and a couple other provider agencies, altruist and outside the box, Colleen and Christy will be hosting the opportunity to pull together some virtual meetings and working locally in Marion County to help battle isolation for people with disabilities. So we are excited to be part of that. And, Colleen and Christy, thank you so much for stepping forward and, putting in the time and energy that it took to receive that grant. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. Congratulations to you. And this is a project that's a great partnership with Quillo, and we'll be able to provide lots of opportunities for individuals to engage and interact and stay connected with one another. So we're looking forward to working with Quillo on this.
Yeah, excellent.
Colleen, this John, somebody that saw this picture suggested that you and I do a remake of the movie Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger when they looked at this picture and they said,
I should have brought my step stool.
But it was a wonderful day. The Lieutenant Governor came to Marici as well as the Deputy Mayor, and a lot of excitement there. So we'll be keeping people posted.
It was a great day. So it's a great project. So we're looking forward to working with you on it.
Well, and let me just share, if your organization receives a a fantastic award through either a grant or, something that we can recognize, please let us know. We would love to share that with our Quillo community. There's a lot of time and effort that goes on behind the scenes to create and make these opportunities available for folks. So we always want to recognize the good that's taking place out there. So please drop us a note, let us know, and we would love to put your pictures up too, okay? The second thing that we want to recognize on our good news bench today is Kisa, who recently got married on April 3rd. She is officially changing her name to Kisa Birdwell. So Tom and Kisa, yeah, Jenny, thank you for that clap. So we were excited to see that wedding day was beautiful. And Kisa, do you have any words you just want to share about that little chicken ride that you guys had?
Yeah, so we went around our city in the chicken limo. It's just a limo with a chicken head on top, and it clucks whenever you honk the horn. So it was fantastic, and got a lot of pictures, and it was just a wonderful day celebrating with family. So thank you.
Yeah, well, congratulations. And again, we just wanted the Quillo Nation group to know that if you hear Kisa Birdwell, that is still Kisa Dickerson. And congratulations. We're excited for you and Tom. She's actually all packed. She's leaving tomorrow morning to go on a little 2-week honeymoon. So I'm sure she's going to have fun. So those are a couple of our good news bench celebrations this morning. And again, if any of you have good news that you want us to share, please drop us a note. We'd love to recognize your teams, you personally, if there's something great that's happening. We think it's important to always celebrate those things. So with that, let me shift it over to John. John's going to start our discussion now let's talk about growth a little bit and hear a little bit more around what we're doing to continue to grow. So John?
Well, this has been a unique year, to say. It's hard to put into words, and we'd be remiss also of not to our friends in Minneapolis right now and across the country. It seems like we're living through another repeat of the issues around racial justice and community policing, and our heart goes out to everybody because we're all in this together. So to Joe and Barbara and Rebecca there in Minneapolis, but to everybody around the country, because it's everywhere. But we also, practicing the art of PERMA, we need to talk about growth and positive things that are happening. And growth can mean many things to people. And traditionally, we talked about growth with organizations if they serve more people or they added more programs. And I want to come at growth a little bit differently for all of us this year. And so what do I mean when I talk about growth? So growth is both what's visible, what we see above ground, or with plants, it's also what we don't see, the growth that happens inside us, what we feel, what we see within our organizations that's visible, and also what is not so visible. So when we talk about growth, I want you to keep in mind this idea of what is above ground with our metaphor of a plant, and the growth that happens underground with folks. And in this past year, it's also important, again, going back to our positive emotions here, of taking a look at what is the positive things that we've grown through this last year. It has been horrific on many fronts. We've lost friends, we've lost people, we've lost contact. But through some of that great challenge, we've also seen some great growth. We've shown resiliency. We've shown that we can overcome things and move forward in some ways that are really important. And one of the things I'd like you to do as I'm talking is use the chat feature. And I'd like you to respond to everybody and just put out there, what is the one area that you feel you have personally grown in this last year? As difficult as it's been and everything that's happened, what is it that you have grown in this last year? It may be a new appreciation. It may be a new skill. It may be learning how to do Zoom and survive a day of Zoom. But what is it that you feel you have personally grown? And this isn't a quiz. This isn't going to be tested on later, but it is also part of recognizing that even in some of our most difficult times, we grow and begin thinking about that. So if you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat, that would be really helpful. Great, flexibility. Then we start thinking about those and what we have all grown, then begin thinking about how did that happen and how do we sustain that? So as we thinking about this, then we've learned to do some things differently. We've learned some different approaches. How do we sustain that? If it's been a positive growth that we've achieved, even as we start to see signs of opening up, how do we sustain that? One of my friends in one of our agencies said they have learned to spend a lot more time on the relationship building with each other on their staff and have gotten to know people in a whole new way. And they're trying to figure out how they sustain that and not go back to business as usual. Great ideas in here. Everything from the inner peace, knowing yourself, to adapting communication styles. All of these are important as we begin to look forward of where do we want to go. Now I'd like to ask you to think about it from a little bit different lens. So looking at your organization. So I asked you first to think about how you've grown in this year, to now thinking about how has your organization grown? And, again, we used to measure growth by how did the budget grow? Did we add more staff? Are we serving more people? Did we add new programs? What is it that you would see you felt your organization has grown in this year? Anything you'd like to toss out? And again, there are no right or wrong answers as this. How has your organization grown as you begin looking at this? Teamwork. Cool. Anybody else? Advancing and embracing technology. Very good. Very good. So then think adaptability. It gets to that resilience. Excellent. Well, Kevin, thank you for getting very specific about Quillo, that you got up to 247 users and 500 to go. That is great. Great job. Implementing a new pay system. Great one. Forming a diversity, equity, inclusion task force for organization. Shifting gears quickly, being able to adapt. Excellent. Excellent. Now, how do we sustain that growth? How do we keep that going? Because the times made us grow. How do we sustain that? How do we sustain the positives that we've learned and begin building those out? Any ideas on that? Because will that growth continue without, just like the tree, will those roots grow without some sustenance as we continue to move out of this? Or do we go back to old habits? Some of you have heard me in the past talk about appreciative inquiry, the idea of looking at what's working instead of looking at just problems that we need to solve. And I was talking to somebody about this recently, and they got a grant to do it for 5 years, and they really enjoyed doing it for 5 years of forcing themselves to work on appreciative inquiry, the study of what's working, asking why it's working, and then doing more of it. Interestingly, when the grant ended, do you think they continued that approach? No, they went right back to problem solving all the time. So it took somebody should have sustained that effort along the way. interesting thing about listening, about what great comment here. Listening is important, especially for the white staff, learning from others of what they're dealing with. Excellent, excellent. So as we think about that, sustaining that growth and how do we keep moving, one of the things we have is listening. The other is sharing back out. So the other things that some of the people mentioned is the ability to work from home is a stressor, but also we learned some new skills to be able to do that. So we used the metaphor of trees and plants and wanted to share this fun video, since we are into videos, that talks about how plants communicate. So I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca, because we don't often think about trees talking to one another. So we're going to spend about a minute on this.
The trees are talking to each other. No, really, trees send each other nutrients and other chemicals through vast underground networks, effectively talking to one another. These mycorrhizal networks are made up of fungi and tree roots working in tandem. The fungi exchange the minerals they get from the soil for the sugars that trees produce. In times of stress, trees can use these underground systems to send warning signals, alerting neighbors to build up defenses against incoming pests, diseases, or drought. This pipeline also lets resource-rich trees share carbon and other nutrients with hungry trees. In summer, paper birches send food to Douglas firs when they're overshadowed by leafier trees. Then in fall, Douglas firs return the favor by sending carbon back the other way. Resource sharing happens all over the forest, with some older trees helping seedlings that are just starting off in life. And just like humans, trees tend to help their own family members out more often. But when loggers...
And that was just a quick look of the idea that something we think is kind of inanimate has this incredible root structure and how they're working together and sharing. So you think about the growth that happened above ground and the growth and sharing that goes below the surface that we can't see. In all of our organizations, we have the ability of communication and how do we support one another in sharing along the way. And we thought that was a great metaphor also for the value of what Quillo can do and how we use it as a positive tool within your organization. So as you think about growth and what we want to sustain, I would ask you to think about what you listed as your growth items in the chat. And how often do we share that with each other and thank each other for how we're all growing along the way? And that growth may be something somebody is sharing with you, but it's also something you can share back out to folks. So your vision for this next year, if you were to sit down and think about the ideas that you want to sustain that growth, you want to sustain that positive energy and emotions, relationships with staff, the people you support, those who support your organizations. One of the things we know from all of our studies and talking to folks is that growth can happen accidentally or in response to this outside stimulus of the pandemic. But how do we sustain it? How do we make sure people are recognizing that and where we're going? And so one of the things we have the ability is to share those positive messages back with folks. So as you think about that, one of the things we'd like to, again, offer as we begin looking at this through Quillo is if we can assist you with your vision of what you want to do, one of the things is if we can help with a planning session to begin thinking about how would you like to get that message out? What can we do to help you? Can we help with a recording session that begins sharing that message within your organization? And then a number of our groups have begun looking at how they can use an individual video that is sharing that success and that growth internally, but also allow it to share it with other people external to the organization. Because one of the things that we're learning is that those that support us, whether they're policymakers, funders, regulators, or the families that receive support from us, have gone through this whole experience with us at the same time. And positive messaging works for them to, they may be thinking, my goodness, how are those people at Trinity really getting through this terrible time? Or how are those folks at Tarrant County MHMR or at Village Emerging? How are they managing? And the ability to send positive messages, not to our own folks, but to those in the community with stories, can be really helpful as we plan and come out of this pandemic. So we're offering, again, we'd like to, if a planning session helps, a recording session, we're talking about ideas about how you can share video message with outside audience to help sustain yourselves and sustain the growth. We're excited to work with you on that. And thanks for letting me talk a little bit about growth. It is an opportunity, a transformational opportunity we're coming through right now, that everything's changing around us. And how do we build that positive change and where we want to go for the future? As somebody said to me, and I'm doing a keynote speech for the Arc of Illinois, that we don't want to just go back to where we were 18 months ago. We want to go forward. How do we be better about where we're going to be, not just going back? So again, love to hear your thoughts about growth. If you want to reach out to Sue or Rebecca or I, we'd love to talk with you more about how can we assist you in this and begin helping you sustain that positive momentum of where you're going. And thanks for sharing. Anybody that has anything they'd like to add into this right now?
John, I just want to share, I just want to share that, you know, it was, thanks everybody for adding your comments to the chat. You know, as I was reading through them, it kept resonating with me that, hey, not only did I have my growth in that area, but gosh, yeah, I did take on new opportunities and challenges, or, you know, it just triggered other thoughts in terms of how much growth there really was this last year. And, you know, we may think that, you know, we were kind of stuck because of the pandemic and various things, but just reading people's comments. So thanks everyone for just helping jar my memory a little bit too, as I read through your comments. I found them very enlightening. And even from an organizational standpoint, some of the, you know, things that are being implemented. I mean, even like Jenny was talking about getting back to getting regular meetings going and, you know, being able to use the technology. And for so many people, just learning how to use the technology was a huge growth for everybody. But getting back to some sense of what people now see is, okay, we got some normalcy coming back and that feels more comfortable. I think it really just stretched everybody out of their comfort zones this past year with what you had to do.
And sometimes, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did I jump in over somebody? And sometimes just acknowledging that with each other about, we survived this year together and thank you for being there for me, is a huge plus. I was thinking about the other day, I was telling somebody, Meredith, about the video you did last year where you kind of tricked people, where you had, and this is pre-pandemic, where you brought them in and said we were going to interview them, and then you told them what a beautiful smile you have, or what a beautiful person you are, and you filmed the reaction people had to this, and it was really transformational, especially the one person who said, nobody's ever told me I've been beautiful before in my life. And, you know, that sounds like such a simple thing, but it can be transformational in somebody in the relationship and how they feel about things. And again, thank you all for what you do in keeping the positive emotions moving forward. And I know Andrea and Melanie have to jump off here at 2:30, but they could lead us in a whole section on PERMA at some point about how do we build that in. And we're excited about this project with Marici also about how do we make sure we continue to battle social isolation. We've all experienced it. People with disabilities have experienced it for many, many years. And we don't want to go back to just leaving them isolated again. Well, we are able to go back to another life of being out in the community. So thank you all. Thank you for letting us talk a little bit about growth. And if we can help you plan, record, or thinking about using video in a new way, please reach out and let us know what we can do to help. Sue, I think I'm turning it back to you now.
Great. Thanks, John. Make sure I'm off mute. I am. Great. Okay. Well, we always want to take time for a little self-care. So let's talk about, again, just some of the videos we have on Quillo that you may want to turn into and just take a moment for yourself. So the first one there is take what you need to. There's actually another one, which is the first one. But basically what we do is we give you ideas depending on what you need that day. So we'll give you 3 videos under the topic of teamwork, ideas, goal setting, to have just a smile or a laugh if that's what you need today, or maybe it's a little motivation. I would say go to this particular self-care video and find what you need. It'll give you some ideas on what other videos are out there under those particular topics. The second one is called The Cycle of Care and Self-Care. And this one is by our friend Patty Mitchell, who is the CEO of Creative Abundance, which is again, a very creative art studio. And what Patty reminds us of in this particular video is really about, we give out quite a bit, but make sure that you also know how to receive. So it's about giving openly and receiving openly. And again, for a short 60 seconds, it's a great reminder of the importance of receiving. And then the third one there is caring for your team and yourself. And this is from one of our DSPs in New York, Ryan. And she talks about, again, just having that mental and emotional support for others, which again, as in terms of what we do in our jobs, it's got to be there. But you also have to remember that you really can't support others unless you're also taking care of yourself. So again, Ryan shares a nice message in that particular video. So I know one thing that I always do is when I see these particular videos, I go out onto Quillo and I search for these particular videos and watch them, and then reflect for a little bit, because it just gives you that moment, that 1 minute, less than 60 seconds to say, you know what, remember to take care of yourself too. And we often need to do that. So thanks for pulling those together, Rebecca. And I just want to, before we wrap up, any reflection from anyone in terms of the messages that we shared today? You know, it's a short session. We're at 2:30, so we've got a little bit of time. And is there anything going on in your organizations that you'd like to share around either the growth theme itself or a celebration that you have going on? We would love to hear. Anyone have anything that they'd like to share?
I do. I here at the Resource Center in Tarrant County,
Okay.
we have been encouraging our during huddle time to play some of the videos. And so the guests are loving it.
Excellent.
It's fun, and now the staff are trying to learn how to make videos, and it's very encouraging because now I'm gonna sit there and train them how to do it. But it's fun. You know, it's a really cool thing, and they get to see different people and just neat ideas and encouraging videos. So you guys are doing a great job. Everybody's doing a great job. It's a fun thing. And David also got to he had a meeting and was able to sign up some HCS providers and their service programmers. So we're up to 64 now. Yay.
Awesome.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you.
Great. Joanna, thank you very much for speaking up around that. We're excited about what your team is doing down there and love the fact that you're sharing all the videos you are with Quillo. So excited to hear that you've got other people who are wanting to create those messages. Awesome.
Sounds like I have to think of the video about the trees talking to each other. You're creating these resources and, you know, sharing the messages back and forth, and your own little forest, which is great. So I'm really leaning into the growth tree theme today. So
Jenny asked the question about how do your supporting staff during these tragedies against people of color? And is anybody would like to just share how you're dealing with that internally for employees that and the families that we support? You know, it is such a challenging time for folks. Anybody would like to share what they've been doing or give some ideas along the way that you felt has been effective?
and Joe, not to put you on the spot, but you mentioned the DE&I committee, and I don't know if there's lessons learned or if that's still new or if there's anything to that.
Yeah, you know, I unfortunately, you know, haven't been heavily involved myself. My boss, Barbara, who's our communications director, and she unfortunately couldn't make it today. I know she sits on our DEI committee. You know, I think fairly shortly after what happened with George Floyd last year, there was that sense that, I mean, I think it was kind of a long time coming anyway for ourselves because we have such a diverse, especially our DSPs, diverse staff. And our central office where I'm at, you know, isn't nearly as diverse. So, you know, it's kind of this hard thing where in the homes, you know, I think they're feeling different things than we probably know about where we're at. But they did form this committee and have, you know, I think a pretty good variety between some upper management and DSPs and everybody in between. So I haven't really been involved in that other than that they've had a couple of sessions with, they'll bring in a consultant or somebody and you sign up for one. And I know for myself, that was kind of eye-opening because the one I went to, I don't know, there was about a dozen people in, and it hit me that like, you know, I was the only, there was only two guys there and I was the only white guy. And, you know, you had, a variety of races and, a lot of women there and just the things that came out, even just beyond race, like people talking about, ageism or just different things like that, realizing it goes beyond and just kind of learning from that. So I think in answer to the original question, there are things that have helped. I think we're lucky that our CEO, John Estrom, I don't know if he's recorded videos yet, but he'll send out an email blast to staff and to families. And I think that's really helped coming from him, just knowing that there's concern and care from the top, just having these different committees and having avenues too, where I think some of the original sessions they had, I know some of the DSPs, I think still didn't feel like they could be heard because it's like,
Kisa?
if there's a, I don't know if you guys can still hear me. If there's a session,
Yep.
oh, sorry. If there's a session, where they felt like, oh, too many upper management were at, they're afraid to really speak their mind. So they've tried hard to have sessions that, okay, this is only for DSPs or this is only, for certain groups so that they maybe would feel more comfortable. I know I'm kind of rambling now, but I think, yeah, just having stuff coming down from the top and just.
Joe, you may have frozen there. But is there anybody else that wants to chime into that? If anybody's unmuting or thinking about it, Jenny, the other resource, actually, Ryan Fenner, who's mentioned here as one of the videos, I'll drop her name in the chat. She did a series of, what were they called? Some blogs with NADSP last summer talking about Black DSPs matter. And that's not a full program, or doesn't completely get to your question about resources, but it might be a good starting point. Those should be linked in her videos, and I can also send you the link afterwards as well. Again, just as a starting point to hear some different perspectives. Her organization ended up starting an internal group to help address the issue as well. But I think it's an ever evolving conversation, and other resources coming out. So yeah, and Joanne, I see your note. I'll try to catch the link and drop it in the chat here. We can include it in the follow-up email. But other organizations, have you had other experiences or advice? It's a big and an important topic to be weaving through.
No, I know they call me nerdy, but I just try to show and let them know that they're appreciated. I know I don't particularly dwell on the tragedies or that area as per se, but I know as humans, we appreciate little things. It don't have to be major, big, but just something to just bring you back to that happy place. Little trinkets here and there, little just acknowledgement, going out your way just to do like something, just to make that one particular person feel that they are important, that we need you. That kind of helps out a little bit, I think.
We can never underestimate how a simple comment to someone can have significant impact. One of our other authors, Carol Guest, shared the story of something she said to one of Evan, her son with Down syndrome, one of his caregivers along the way. And this lady came up to her 10, 15 years later and said, "You won't know how much that when you asked about me and how I was doing one day, you didn't tell me what to do with Evan. You didn't tell me what to do or how to do things with him. You asked me how I was doing." And so, Joanna, I think you're absolutely right. We don't have to have always big answers. Sometimes it's that smallest of connections with folks that shares that along the way as what we do. The other thing Ryan will tell you in one of her videos is when she first felt that her organization wasn't paying enough attention to this, she wrote a very long email to her managers and the leaders in the organization, all of whom happened to be male and all of whom happened to be white. And they responded very positively, saying, "We want to sit down and talk with you about this. We want to learn more from you." And it started a whole new dialogue of what they were doing. And they weren't overly conscious about what they didn't know, but they wanted to engage her and other staff of thinking about this. And so I think that is a great lesson. There is no one playbook, but I think and she would say they were sincere and they cared about them. And so I think those are really key messages along the way for folks.
I really
That's
appreciate
true.
everybody. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I had a new staff and she had came to me and she almost had tears in her eyes. And she was like, "You know what, Miss Joanne, I just want to say thank you." I'm like, "For what?" "Because you asked me how I was doing. You wanted to know how I was." And I helped so much because her father passed about a month ago. And I made sure I kept calling her as she took time off because she was a daddy's girl. And just letting her know that I wanted to know how she was just without work. Just, "How are you?" She said that meant more than anything to her and she greatly appreciated it. And that made me feel good because she acknowledged it and I touched her at a time where she really needed it. So it, like you said, it give me the smallest little thing. It's a good thing.
I think it's those personal connections and relationships that really, they make such a difference. And I do believe that we have a very strong appreciation program throughout the whole organization. And we've communicated that pretty strongly with the pandemic going on. And we've communicated a lot of resources regarding the pandemic, but haven't had as many resources to be able to easily share for people who are dealing with traumas due to the pandemic, like losing a loved one, or, you know, all this stuff going on with the Black Lives Matter and everything, and trying to show support for them in those regards. So I didn't want it to be something that we just never acknowledge, you know, because it is very important that they feel safe and heard at work. So considering that, I'm trying to think a little bit more critically about how we're having those meetings in the future with upper management and staff in the homes, because we haven't had that feedback loop for a while because we haven't had meetings. So yeah, I just wasn't sure if people had anything that they found successful, but yeah, I'm hoping it's something we can keep growing. I appreciate all you guys and the ideas that you shared.
I'll also, and Jenny, thank you for bringing this question up to begin with. I'll look through, I've received a couple of resources over the past year that are also things like social stories, right? If for folks who support social stories explaining, you know, what happened in Minneapolis last summer, that sort of thing. If that's helpful, just to, you know, in its most basic explanation, what are we talking about? If that would be a possible resource, just to, you know, if there are staff who are getting questions from the people they support, or, you know, there's also webinars I've seen on occasion for what to do if a staff member is experiencing racism from someone they support, right? How do you navigate that? So I'll see if I can pull some of those and share those along as well.
Great. Jenny, thank you for bringing that up. Good discussion. We appreciate everyone's input on this. Any other thoughts, topics, reflections before we move and wrap up today? Anyone?
Throughout all of this, self-care is absolutely essential for all of us. And some of us are guilty of promoting that for others and not doing it ourselves as much as we should. So I take from every one of these reminders from Sue and the rest of our team that self-care is important for everyone. And none of us is as strong as we think we are, but all of us are stronger together. So thank you guys for sharing.
Yeah. Okay, so next month we are looking at May 20th for our Quillo Nation call, and our topic is new chapter. And the reason we're going with new chapter is because we are doing some updates to our Quillo platform, as well as launching our family and self-advocate platform called Quillo Connect in hopefully July of this year. So with that, Quillo is starting a new chapter, and you're going to start to hear us talk about Quillo as Quillo Pro for Quillo Professional. So it's the Quillo Pro, and then we'll have another product called Quillo Connect. So you'll hear more on May 20th as we start a new chapter. And we, again, continue to reflect. What are the new chapters that you're starting to think about in your organizations or even for yourself personally? Again, we always appreciate the time, energy, and what you do to support others. But like we just said, don't forget about yourself either. With that, we will look forward to seeing everybody on May 20th. You guys have a great remainder of the day, and thanks for being part of the Quillo Nation. We do really appreciate what you're doing. Everyone, have a great day. We'll see you. Bye now.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.